Emily, do you see anyone else, or should we?
I think we're good to get started.
All right. Well, that's my cue. Welcome everyone to today's press conference where we will be talking about a collaborative effort on Maryland's Eastern Shore to bring environmental improvements to several Eastern Shore jurisdictions. My name is AJ Metcalf. I am the Maryland Media Relations Coordinator for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and I will just briefly be going over the agenda before handing it over to Alan Gerard, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's Eastern Shore Director, who will provide some background on the project and get us into our main agenda. And for everyone watching today, here is the agenda. Like I said, Alan will provide the background first, and then we will go to Tom Lee, who's the project manager for Delmarva RC&D, who is helping to put these projects in the ground, and he will go briefly over a few of the projects and what the environmental improvements will look like and mean for some of these jurisdictions. And then we'll go to the restoration value, the government partners who have made this project a success. That will include Secretary Ben Grumbles of the Maryland Department of the Environment, County Commissioner Jim Moran from Queen Anne's County, Pete Lesher, Talbot County Council member, Victoria Jackson Stanley, the mayor of the city of Cambridge, Amanda Pollock, the director of infrastructure and development from the city of Salisbury, Robert Willey, the mayor of the town of Easton, and the town clerk and treasurer from the town of Oxford, Cheryl Lewis. And after that, we'll have a media question and answer session. So during then, we are asking reporters to type their questions in the chat, and then we will spotlight you to ask them either individually to a panelist or to the group as a whole. So let's get right into it. And we are now going to go to Alan Gerard for the initial background. Alan, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, I can see it now. There we go. Sorry about that. Thanks, AJ, and everybody for joining us. This project got started in response to the commitment made in 2010 by EPA, the Bay States, and Washington, D.C. to have all practices in place needed to restore the Bay's health by 2025. That commitment and the actions it's prompted is working. Low oxygen dead zones are shrinking in size over time. Oysters are beginning to recover. And the water's getting clearer, helping underwater grasses come back. And watermen will tell you, anytime there's grasses, there's crabs. But the work hasn't been without challenges. In Maryland, local governments have been close partners with state officials in doing their part for clean water. They own the wastewater plants. They manage the stormwater infrastructure. So each of them play a key role in bay restoration. The problem is, and rural Eastern Shore counties and towns will tell you, the staff and the funding needed to manage these facilities well is very often in short supply, especially for those facilities that treat polluted runoff. So in 2016, CBF partnered with the Harry R. Hughes Center for Agroecology, University of Maryland Sea Grant Extension, and Eastern Shore Land Conservancy to pull together the shore's counties and towns in what we called the Healthy Waters Roundtable. We asked them, what are your biggest challenges? What are the most promising solutions? And there were many responses, but what counties and towns said they needed most is technical assistance, more capacity to plan and implement projects to produce clean water. Next slide. So this pilot tests one possible response. It includes Queen Anne's and Talbot counties, the cities of Cambridge and Salisbury, and the towns of Easton and Oxford, and it proposes a simple idea. Pool together a modest amount of money that doesn't have a major impact on any one local budget, encourage state and federal government to match that investment, and hire a circuit rider, a dedicated staff person who can plan, prioritize, and procure resources that can get projects done more easily than any one jurisdiction can do alone. So in 2017, Tom Lee, who you'll hear from in a bit, was hired. In the first several months, he poured through county town restoration plans and designs to see what needs doing, screened opportunities for similar work across multiple localities, and recruited interest from outside funders. So on the slide now, you see some of the results. Shovel-ready projects. Counties and towns now have several new project designs that are either produced or completed for making them ready to go into the ground. 19 of those projects are now planned for installation this coming spring. In Salisbury, more trees is a top priority. The city's finalizing a tree canopy assessment to know where to put them. And this next one we're really excited about. Most counties and towns lack capacity to manage projects well, and the ones that have dedicated funding for restoration have decided to outsource some of its spending to the Chesapeake Bay Trust. The trust now solicits, contracts, and manages project installers on the locality's behalf, helping them get the most work done with the least amount of effort. Now, this last one is probably the most significant outcome of the project to date. With Tom's guidance, the counties and towns identified trees, shrubs, and meadows as the least cost opportunity to improve water quality. Then they identified 13 locations, mostly on public property like parks and open space to put them. And they used $60,000 in restoration funding to match a $300,000 grant award from the state to install them. That's a 5-to-1 return on investment. Those projects are going in right now under a single construction contract, reducing administrative costs and making limited dollars do more of what we want to help clean our air and the water for everyone to enjoy. Now on your screen now, you've got a sort of blown up picture of where those projects are located. On the next slide, AJ, you'll see a little bit more finer grain detail. Some of these projects are a little bit more closely oriented together. And then on a slide following, we've got a detailed list of the names of the projects, where they're located specifically. Press and others on the call will be able to see this information in a press release that'll be issued shortly. I think we're circulating this PowerPoint as well, so folks can have the detail. But let me turn it over to Tom Lee, the Regional Watershed Services Manager, who was really the lead voice, the circuit rider or dedicated staff for these localities that is now putting projects on the ground. He's gonna take some time to overview with you. Tom?
Thanks, Alan, and good to see all my partners here representing the Healthy Waters work group that got me here. Circuit rider position is actually a cobbling together of part-time positions to make a full-time position. So I've had 7 bosses through this process, and it's been a real positive experience for me. So I want to walk through sort of the economy of scale that we're trying to reach, right? We can buy in bulk. Can we buy in bulk trees, shrubs at a discount and implement them across the landscape, across jurisdictional boundaries at a cost savings, right? Administratively, if each of these projects were to be undertaken by an individual or jurisdiction, they would each have to run a procurement process, contractual process, grant management process. So what we're trying to do is not only find cost savings in purchasing, but also administratively in how we manage this, so that there's one clearinghouse, one person, yours truly, to manage those contracts, that grant awards, the calls from the contractors, those small fine details that really is something that wears down and takes up time from those individual jurisdictions. So with that said, I'm going to walk through a handful of projects and sort of outline some of the specific unique attributes for each one. So here we are in Queen Anne's County in Graysonville Park. Just behind the trees on the left-hand side of the screen, there's an agricultural ditch that is the boundary, the natural boundary between the park and farming operation. And the water flows toward the photographer and right into Kent Narrows. So we're trying to buffer that agricultural runoff with this. We're also going to be planting some understory under those trees to reduce the maintenance that the county must perform on this park, drawing circles and mowing around and around and around. So that's an underlying theme of these continuing slides. Also in Whitemarsh Park, just north of Centerville, it's a relatively new park with very little in the way of stormwater treatment and water quality improvements. So it was really ripe for potential project implementation. So we're using the swales and really the non-athletic field areas of the park to improve water quality to receiving streams. And in the back of this particular photograph, the property is owned by DNR, and there are rare, threatened, and endangered species on that property. So this particular location will buffer and protect those habitat resources. Moving south into Talbot County, this is a unique situation where this is a ground up project. The community of Cordova, through an exercise of its comprehensive plan update and community engagement process, recognized that their park needed some help and some improvements aesthetically. The slide here, the residential on the right and the park where we're standing, there's some exercise equipment in the foreground. You see that the bench in the middle of nowhere, no shade. So we're going to be planting trees, providing shade, a windbreak, and a property delineation to this park. And it's came from the citizens of Cordova itself. Talbot County Biosolids, this is the spray irrigation facility just outside of Easton. And this is unique in that we're enhancing an existing stream buffer. The enhancement in most of these projects are to improve water quality. This actually is to protect an existing high quality stream that runs just outside of the photograph here. So we have a high quality stream, let's protect it so that we don't have to restore it later down the road if and when that becomes degraded from any number of sources. Talbot County ditch retrofit. Ditch retrofits are gaining attention, attraction, and interest on the shore because primarily the county or the jurisdiction owns the right-of-way next to the road. So we don't need complicated landowner agreements, permission slips, those sorts of things. And this project was a road widening project in Talbot County as part of their business enterprise zone. And in doing so, they actually purchased land from the agriculture operator, the farmer, so they could widen road, and in doing so, widen their rights of way and give us some space to create a treatment conveyance out of it, what otherwise is just a ditch that carries polluted water and runoff into a nearby stream. So Shrubs and actually a ditch recontour will be phase 2. Moving south into Cambridge, Great Marsh Park is a gem for the city. It hosts their Ironman as well as other recreational opportunities for the citizens of the city. And this corner, you can see this wasn't necessarily a rainy day photograph at all. It was simply a high tide. So extreme high tides inundate this park and make this corner relatively unusable. So the approach with planting this corner is to help soak up some of that water, flood abatement, as well as beautification and some shade in the critical area, actually the 100-foot buffer. Now the city of Salisbury, very unique in that it wasn't prepared to put in projects instantly. They didn't have any low-hanging fruit for tree plantings, but instead took a more academic or investigative approach. So their monies were turned into an urban tree canopy to give and guide the city for the next 30 years. So places where they can improve their tree canopy to reduce heat island effects, to provide shade and habitat and aesthetics to the city's residents, but also to remove hazard trees and to look for a long-term solution to get to an increase ultimately in that tree canopy within the city boundaries. Into the town of Easton. This is Moton Park. The towers in the background, that's Route 33, that's the bypass, and water drains from 33 toward the photographer. And so this area in the middle here is often soggy and wet and therefore relatively unusable. So this will be a bioretention area and beautification area with trees and habitat. It's a very public park. It's very high demonstration value, and it will serve as public education as well. And even more public and popular is RTC Park. It adjoins and is contiguous with the rail to trail system in Easton. So there's a lot of visitors. I was just out staking this property out yesterday with flags to be planted later this week. And 3 people came over and asked me what I was doing. They're very interested, even on a cold, windy day. There's a lot of visitors here. So we're planting some meadow, some pollinator habitat, as well as some trees to fill in some spaces sort of here in this photograph. You really can't play Frisbee or ball in this area. There's lots of trees, but we can increase the canopy. We can reduce mowing needs and necessities from the town, and beautification and screening from adjoining properties as well. Easton Airport is relatively unique also. This is property that's adjacent to the airport. It's actually on their approach vector for one of their runways. And the town of Easton owns this property, and they currently have to mow 7 acres of grass just on the outside of town. So what we've decided to do is transform this into a large meadow planting. And what's relatively unique about this is we had to work with the Maryland Aviation Administration to develop a customized seed plant that doesn't necessarily invite birds, right? Planes don't like birds. So that was a relatively interesting aspect of this, is to work in partnership with the airport management staff and the seed provider so that we're creating habitat and water quality improvement practices, but we're not inviting birds to the party. Oxford Central Park, this is interesting and unique because Oxford has, if you aren't aware, they have flooding problems, sunny day flooding. So you'll hear from Cheryl later that she likes to describe this as separating high tides from storm events. Hold the water, slow that flow down. So we let the water recede, the tide go out, and allow these practices to filter the water at the same time. Now, I don't want to highlight the fact that there's trash and whatnot in this park. This picture was taken after a heavy storm and heavy winds. But this corner you can see is wet. So this will be a bioretention area. In the background, there's a little bit of a silt fence and a pile of dirt that you see that has since been contoured into an outdoor amphitheater. And that the spoils, the excavation of that material came from just behind the photographer to an upgrade in the town's wastewater treatment plant. So this is a reuse of material that's nearby, and it's now being transformed into a park enhancement and a beautification process. And I think just brilliantly planned out by the town. And we just happened to come in with some opportunity, and it was just a very positive outcome of multiple sources coming together. What do we do with this material? It's awfully expensive, and it's probably one of the taller spots in Talbot County as it exists. So it's very expensive to haul and material off site. And where do we do with it? Where do we use it? Let's use it on site and turn lemon into some lemonade.
Thanks, Tom. Enough from me and Tom now. I wanted to turn it over to some of the government officials that are joining us on the call and give them an opportunity to make remarks. Secretary Grumbles heads up the Maryland Department of the Environment. You know, MDE is not only a financial contributor to this project, but they're also a programmatic contributor, you know, in their watershed implementation plan that guides the state's bay restoration effort. They are committed to exploring options to figure out how to partner with local governments and provide them the support they need. So we wanted to give the Secretary an opportunity to make some remarks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're also a spiritual cheerleader for this work. We're so proud of everyone who has been involved in this Eastern Shore Circuit Rider program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the key to success in accelerating our efforts to restore the Chesapeake Bay, meet our 2025 commitments, to increase the equity and effectiveness of our practices. And so I want to just emphasize a few things. First is to thank all of the members of the Healthy Waters Roundtable and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the Chesapeake Bay Trust. I also want to thank DNR and Secretary Riccio for stepping up and really providing funding and support for this effort. Here's what we know, although we tend to forget it sometimes. Clean water begins at home. The phrase think globally and act locally could never be truer. And when you apply it to the Chesapeake Bay restoration efforts, the phrase is really think regionally and partner locally. In the smaller towns and communities on the Eastern Shore, provide teamwork and technology and assistance through the Circuit Rider program, which is the great concept that was designed and that MDE was eager to help facilitate. I can't be more appreciative than I am of the local government leaders who stepped up and are participating in this effort and sharing sharing lessons and highlighting that the softer path, the green infrastructure choices are really going to make a difference for reducing nutrient and sediment pollution, providing those co-benefits of a more resilient community, and adding value, economic value to the neighborhoods, not just beautifying communities and parks, but also adding real economic value. I also just want to emphasize that when Maryland proudly developed its aggressive Phase 3 WIP, the Watershed Implementation Plan, to meet our commitments under the Chesapeake Bay Blueprint for Clean Water, the TMDL, we emphasized that our plan was driven by three things: locally driven strategies, affordability, and balance. This is the example of locally driven strategies, working with towns, communities that don't have a lot of money, have the will, have the desire, but can really benefit from a circuit rider, someone who can travel around and share ideas and cost-effective strategies. We've known for years that trees are the best BMPs in so many ways. Shrubs, meadows, the green infrastructure portfolio can make a real difference. And so MDE is committed to encouraging that, continuing to encourage that, not just through our regulatory programs and provide credit for these types of strategies, but also financially, working with other state agencies and the federal government to provide support for this type of work, the locally driven, that can be cost effective and more effective in the long run, because we know that collaboration over confrontation is the key to success. And then just the last thing I want to say is this work that's being highlighted today by local leaders and non-governmental organizations, environmental groups, the Healthy Waters Roundtable, underscores that now more than ever, particularly in the midst of a pandemic, we need to look outdoors. We need to look outside just the gray infrastructure strategies, the concrete, brick and mortar, and think more about the partnerships that are needed to accelerate our work in greening our communities, and working closely also to increase our equitable projects and outcomes, environmental justice and rural justice, and inclusive engagement. That's the key to this. So Maryland Department of the Environment, I know the whole state of Maryland is very impressed and proud, and we expect this to green and grow our shores and our communities, but also as a model for other parts of the state and for other states within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So thank you all. Congratulations. We look forward to continuing to work with you and to working with other communities that could benefit from an expanded circuit rider program. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and for your strong, supportive, and encouraging words. We greatly appreciate you and your work at the department. I want to turn now to the other local officials that we have here on the call with us. These folks and their staffs have literally written the job description and scope of work for this project. For Tom, and all the work that's been happening has been at the direction of the local governments for the benefit of local governments. And we wanted to give them a chance to make some remarks now. I'll turn to Commissioner Moran, who is with Queen Anne's County.
Good morning. Thanks, Alan. So, I've been involved in this, the Healthy Waters Roundtable since its inception in 2016 with our principal planner, Helen Spinelli, who's now retired, and Nancy Scarsosi has taken her position in place on this, spearheading it for the county. And we're very, very blessed because Tom Lee lives here. So we have Tom at our disposal, and the projects you discussed, 5 of them are going in right now. And Queen Anne's County will, when it comes to these circuit riders and the help from the Bay Restoration and the state, we're always going to be in when we can get that return on that investment. I mean, we've gotten anywhere from 2 to 1 to 4 to 1 return on our dollar investment for our taxpayers in these projects. So we are extremely happy that this is moving forward. And I'd like to share a little story about when this first started with Alan, and I think we were in Easton meeting, and we had all the other municipalities, the other counties there, and we came in with our Southern Kent Island sewer project, which was the first ever in the state of Maryland to receive a dedicated sewer line running down Route 8 with serving 1,500 homes that had failing septic systems. And I think the biggest question we had there was, how were you able to dedicate a line? How were you able to not stop and pick up other houses or other properties? And all that was through legislation. Secretary Grumble's office is MDE helped with this, and we've got it funded. And now this project is moving forward at an accelerated rate with no complaints whatsoever, and it will contribute to 60% reduction in nitrogen from our septic systems, putting us ahead of every other county in the state of Maryland. So, and that was a big discussion out of Alan, if you remember, but we told other municipalities how it works, how we did it, shared that information. So, hopefully I know there's a long line possibly for other people for that Bay Restoration funding, but that was a great venue to get that information out to the other Eastern Shore counties. And these projects that are going on now, I mean, they have the support of the county. We're always looking for somewhere, especially now that the MS4s, Queen Anne's County is involved with that we want to make sure that we have as many avenues to clean the water and protect the water. So, we're extremely grateful for that. And, with that, I'll let somebody else talk for a while.
Thanks, Commissioner Moran. Let me turn it over to Council Member Pete Lesher with Talbot County.
Thank you, Alan, and thanks to all the partners on this project on the Healthy Waters Roundtable. We're really making a difference here, and this is leading to cleaner, swimmable, fishable waters for our citizens and for our visitors. Water quality really matters. It matters to our watermen and to their customers. It matters for our tourism industry and their visitors. It matters to our own residents here. Local jurisdictions are designed to work independently. That's what we do. And cross-jurisdictional cooperation does not come easily or naturally. And so it takes a particular effort, both on the part of staff and for the elected officials, but also the outside impetus and coordination is really key to making this happen. And so thank you for helping us to help ourselves. Watersheds don't follow political boundaries. So if we're going to make improvements to waterways, it will require efforts like this. And with local finances so strained right now, we've been really fortunate to see this level of interest, this level of assistance. And now we look forward to some real tangible progress in water quality improvement projects. Let's just make sure that this is not just a once and done partnership. We need to make sure that we continue to do this moving forward. Thank you again to all the partners.
Thanks, Councilman Lesher. Let me go to Mayor Victoria Jackson Stanley with the City of Cambridge.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The City of Cambridge has been very blessed to have a working relationship with Alan Gerard for many years. He was part of our relationship building as it relates to the water here in Cambridge. We have always been very serious about recognizing the health of the water. I believe water is one of the public safety issues we also must think about. Clean water, healthy water is also a public safety issue. That's my particular belief. But as it relates to the Healthy Waters Roundtable, we look at the value of partnerships. The money and the time of staff and our circuit rider is an investment in our future. And I really look forward to continuing that relationship with this particular organization. As you saw, our Great Marsh water area it floods. It floods a lot. Every hurricane or high tide that is significant floods that area. So the planting of the trees and the wild grass really makes an impact on the livability and the quality of life. We're very blessed to have, we're surrounded by water here in the city of Cambridge. I like to say we're a peninsula within the peninsula. We have so much water around us. So it's very important for us to remember the quality of water is significant for our survival and for our system of thriving here in Cambridge. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be part of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation in partnership with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the state of Maryland, and of course the county. The county is in partnership with us as we look at our water and the quality of water here in Cambridge. I really value that partnership, the fact that we can leverage our resources to really impact the future of the significance and the quality of water here in Cambridge. I want to thank you for an opportunity to speak on behalf of Cambridge, and we look forward to making our clean water reality for generations to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We also have with us Amanda Pollock. She is the Director of Infrastructure and Development with the City of Salisbury. And I turn it over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Salisbury has been very pleased to participate in the Healthy Waters Roundtable Work Group Circuit Rider Program. As you can tell from everyone speaking today, there have been incredible benefits of sharing information and getting to experience this project and working with our partner jurisdictions. And Salisbury is very pleased to have received a $70,000 grant to complete our tree canopy study. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about that study. We're doing a detailed assessment of the existing tree canopy in the city of Salisbury, including identifying tree species that are prevalent in the city. And ultimately, we'll get a recommendation of a citywide tree canopy goal. We couldn't make a goal before. We couldn't really have a goal because we didn't know exactly what we had. So it's very important for us to have this baseline and understand our current tree canopy. We're also developing a tree canopy GIS layer that includes mapping the floodplain as well as sea level rise mapping. So the study takes into account climate change considerations for future planting locations as well as tree species. And finally, the study will recommend an assessment of where tree plantings can occur and opportunities on city properties as well as private properties. So this study will help us meet our watershed implementation plan goals and ultimately help us achieve our MS4 permit compliance. So we're very pleased to have had this opportunity, and thank you for letting me speak today.
Thanks, Amanda. We're pleased to have two folks join us from the town of Easton. Mayor Robert Willey is with us, and also the town engineer, Rick Van Emberg. I'll turn it over to them both.
Okay, yeah, I think it's well stated that the small towns on the shore have the talent on staff to handle the many rules changes and new regulations coming our way. The MS4 permit was one such rule. Easton had quality engineers and staff to work with the rule changes and the new regulations, but no one with hands-on knowledge. The Helpers program provided the necessary expertise and experience to set a procedure to accomplish the expected results. Sharing with several other towns enabled to meet the MS4 program parts. Without Healthy Waters involvement, the process would have been much more difficult and taken a much longer time. The final results of the town working together speak for themselves. Without the close cooperation of all, we would, in all probability, be working through our endless maze of relations. Rick is more involved with day-to-day events, and turn it over to him.
Thank you. Yeah, I began working for the town of Easton 5 years ago with an engineering department staff of 2. We've grown slightly since then, but we have a relatively small engineering staff. About the same time, shortly after I started, MDE warned me that the town of Easton was going to follow the MS4 permit, requiring a significant amount of staff time to compliance. All about the same time as this, Gerard of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation meetings that we've spoken about today, inviting cities and towns in the mid-shore to attend to see what our needs were related to improving the water quality of the bay. I participated in those meetings, and the town of Easton agreed to participate in what would become the Healthy Waters Working Group, the town looking for assistance specifically with our MS4 requirements. As a group, and with Tom Lee as our circuit rider leading the effort, we were able to secure grant funding that we're out later today to plant trees, shrubs in 2 town parks, and 1 parcel, and we have some additional as well. These plantings not only help the environment but also contribute to the MS4 requirement. I just want to make sure to thank Alan Gerard, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, for their vision to bring our local municipalities together. To thank MDE for assistance in funding this project. Thank DNR. Thank Tom for serving as our circuit rider and leading collaboration efforts. And to thank partnering jurisdictions for working with us. But there's much more work to do. I hope we're able to build on this success. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick and Mayor Willie. Finally, we have Cheryl Lewis, who is the town clerk and treasurer with the town of Oxford. Cheryl.
Hi there. If I can get everything in front of you there. There we go. I thank you for inviting me here. I would like to say that, Oxford's relationship with tides and rainwater has driven us to find solutions to protect our lands and improve our waters. And we realized many years ago that green infrastructure was really the answer. We've spent years educating ourselves here in town, educating our public and developing plans and identifying a means to accomplish these plans. But as a small town, we really struggled to implement our forward-thinking ideas. Oxford has found this collaboration and this circuit rider program to be an amazingly successful program. In the beginning, I'm not sure that any of us had a clear view of where we as partners would end up. I remember even thinking, we asked each other, what do we think we're going to get? And yet here we are. For Oxford, the concept of restoring an open lot with bad drainage and creating a healthy green setting where citizens and visitors could enjoy themselves was more than just a whim. Pulling together the necessary engineering, management, and funding for such projects was absolutely a struggle for us. And although we jumped right into it by creating a hill out of reused product, which actually did come out of another bioretention pond, we had to build a really substantial pond to hold some tidal water, basically for protection of properties. We put it there and that hill sat there, and we've really struggled with where to go. And I cannot say enough about how we feel about driving past that area today, where there are freshly planted trees and grass and brush, and it is really going to be an amazing setting. We will be able to do the stormwater retention pond, which will really help to clean the waters that leave that area. We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled to have been part of this partnership, and absolutely thankful for all the players that have made this possible for us. Thank you.
We are absolutely thankful for all of you who have put financial commitment in play to make this project work, and human resources to make it work. And I need to emphasize that the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation provided significant cash resources to really take a risk on us and bring us to where we are today. So thank you all. I want to turn it back over to AJ Metcalf, who is going to lead us through a question and answer segment. AJ.
Yes, thanks. And if we can go to the gallery view so the reporters can see all the panelists. Reporters, if you have any questions for the panel or a specific panelist, please type it into the question and answer box in the Zoom menu. And we will field those questions as they come in. We can highlight or spotlight the reporter if they want to ask that question specifically. So feel free to type in any questions. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. I know we went through the overall view of the program, and you got plenty of insight from our from the partners who have worked as part of this roundtable circuit rider project. But yep. We'll leave the Q&A open for a couple minutes here, and type your questions if you have any. There's one question from Amy Lou in the chat I see. Do you want Amy, do you want to ask this question to the panel?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Amy. You're a little quiet.
Yeah, I'll just ask it to you guys. I'm not sure if this was addressed, but I'd love to know why specifically this collaboration was brought to the Eastern Shore. Why is it important in reaching our Bay goals? And also anything similarly being done CBF-wise on the Western Shore?
In case you couldn't hear it, she did type it in the chat as well, which is, can we talk again specifically why this was piloted on the Eastern Shore? Is there anything similar being done on the Western Shore?
I'll go ahead and offer a possible response quickly here. You know, we were really looking back when the water quality improvement program came online in Maryland to see how rural localities around the state could be engaged and provided more capacity to be stronger partners in the work. You know, a lot of these jurisdictions said that their capacity is insufficient and we need more help. So we have an office on the Eastern Shore, had relationships with many of the local governments, and thought this would be a good place to start. I can say that there is strong interest in bringing work like this, more measures of capacity to rural jurisdictions throughout the state. Folks in the state agencies are partnering with the local governments and NGO partners to figure out how to take this model and others like it to the next level. So I would expect that we'll see more measures of local assistance in the years to come.
Is anyone else wanting to field that? If not, we'll go to Al Hammond. Al, would you like to ask your question? You're now unmuted. You can unmute yourself. If not, Al from the Chestertown Spy did ask, what's next in green infrastructure and water improvement? What's the biggest need?
I can start on that awesome question. Ben Grumbles, Maryland Department of the Environment. What's next is the convergence of green infrastructure with climate resilience, focusing on specific practices and technologies that not only reduce polluted runoff, but also increase the natural buffers for communities to protect against extreme weather, as well as sea level rise and flooding, whether it's sunny day flooding or extreme weather event flooding. And there's growing interest in finding not only the technologies and partnerships, but the regulatory credit and financial assistance for communities to do more and more green infrastructure practices that have the important co-benefits of climate resilience and durability for their communities, wetlands restoration and mitigation banking, so that it's not postage stamp mitigation on site of particular projects, but ones that make more sense and are more likely to be ecologically successful. And one of the biggest needs is to build the partnerships with the private funders, natural capital investors, so that we're not relying solely on public funding or enforcement penalties. Those two continue to be important revenue sources, and not just relying on taxpayers and ratepayers' revenues, but create a commodity, a market, so that investors see, wow, we've got communities on the Eastern Shore or throughout the Bay who really see the benefits to their communities of greening and increasing resilience. And we think it's a smart investment for, green infrastructure bonds or green infrastructure banking. A long-winded answer, but boy, is that the right question to be asking about the greening and the blossoming of the green infrastructure movement.
Thank you, Secretary Grumbles. Anyone else want to take on that question? If not, that is the only questions I see in chat. So reporters, if you have any additional questions, ask them now, or we will conclude today's press conference. And like I said at the beginning, I will also be sending out a short press release and a link so that you can download the PowerPoint that was presented today. And if you have any other questions, follow-up questions, or need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. But last call, I do not see any more questions. So Alan, do you want to thank all the panelists? And thank you so much from CBF.
Thank you, panelists. Appreciate everyone joining us today. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everybody.